All right, so we are going to start the next video in the Fusion 360 CAD training. We're going to use a couple of new features. Um, it should be pretty interesting. So far, what we have done is we have taken two-dimensional shapes and created three-dimensional shapes from them. So we've taken a two-dimensional sketch, a circle, and turned it into a sphere. We've taken squares and made them cubes. We have learned about the extrude feature, whether we are going to go ahead and cut or join and make solid material. We learned about the fillet tool, how we can round off edges. But so far, we've been kind of keeping it at the basic level. We're going to be a little bit more advanced in this video. The other thing that we've done is we've learned how to insert canvases and use sketches to then revolve to make these kind of like circular like shapes. What both of those have had in common is they've only required one sketch to make something 3D. The circle turns into the cylinder. The profile of the pawn gets revolved, and now you have a three-dimensional pawn. One sketch, one feature. Both of the features we're going to use today require two sketches. And you're going to see how it works. So today's theme is going to be designing a coffee sleeve. If you're hitting Starbucks up before class and you don't want to use their paper sleeve, you can go ahead and design one of your own and just take it with you and reuse it over and over and over again. So just some pictures for inspiration. To make it a little bit fancier, though, we're going to put a handle on it like this one. And we can put some designs in it if we want, but I'll show you a couple of cool tricks and features and tools that we can use. Just like before with the pawn, though, we have to have the right size coffee cup. So I looked up a whole bunch of different coffee sizes. And you can probably find the specific one, for the coffee shop that you frequent the most often. But I'm going to go ahead and use this one. And I'm going to pick the 12 ounce. So right now that is 59 millimeter circle at the bottom, an 89 millimeter circle at the top, and then the whole height of this is 110 millimeters. Hopefully right away what you realize is this is not like your standard shape, right? This is going to be difficult to make with like an extrude tool because they're not the same size, right? Some of you might look at this and go, ooh, I can make it with a revolve, and you definitely can. But we're going to learn a new feature today to try to make this coffee cup sleeve. But I'm going to start by modeling the cup. I'm not even going to use the cup. I'm not going to make it hollow like a cup. I'll show you how to do that. But I just want the space to visually see kind of where this coffee cup, coffee sleeve fits on the cup. So I'm going to go back to Fusion, and we're going to jump into it right away. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the bottom circle. I'm going to create a sketch, that bottom. And I'm going to go back to my drawing real quick because I've already forgotten that it's 59 millimeters, not 60, 59. I'm going to do a center diameter circle. I'm going to click once and drag, and I'm going to type in 59 millimeters. Now I'm going to draw the circle that represents the top, this 89 millimeter circle, right? And it is parallel to the bottom circle, but it's offset a distance of 110 millimeters. What makes this a little bit tricky right now is the only thing I can do on Fusion is draw on planes. And right now, the only three planes that are available are at the origin. So this is the first time we're going to introduce how to add a plane. We can put planes wherever we want. I'm going to finish this sketch first. And then over here under Construct, if I pull this drop-down menu, this is how you can put planes pretty much anywhere you want. And, there might be different reasons to use some of these planes, but right now I'm going to pick the default, the one at the top. And remember, Fusion's kind of set up so it often early, either left or at the top, are the tools you're looking for. And then kind of as you move to the right or as you move down, they're a little bit more used less often, a little bit more complicated. So an offset plane. And what I'm going to do when I click on offset plane is I'm going to click on this bottom plane. And then I see this arrow. And I'm actually going to be able to put a plane wherever I want. And I want that to be 110 millimeters from the bottom. Right? Because according to my drawing, it's 110 millimeters from the bottom circle to the top circle. And now I have this plane that is sitting up there that's parallel to this plane. And I can go ahead and I can draw my next circle there. Create a sketch, and I'm going to draw it up here. It snaps my view, and I mean, it looks like I'm drawing on the origin. It looks like that circle is like right there, but you're going to see it's not. This size is 89 millimeters. Again, not 90. I'm going to pick the same midpoint, same center point, and I'm going to bring this out to 89 millimeters. And it looks like I just made two concentric circles until I take the view cube and change my orientation, the angle that I'm looking at, my perspective. I'll come up with some more words. And you can tell that I have one circle that is above and one circle that is below. When I look at the model of the coffee cup, when I look at it, it is a seamless connection between the bottom circle and the top circle. And we can do this in CAD. It's referred to as a loft. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the sketch. I'm going to go ahead and under create something three-dimensional. I'm going to hover over loft. And this is cool. It even allows you to take shapes that aren't the same and combine them. So the preview, the image, is a circle that is being blended into a square. This is very banana-like. If you ever look to see how a banana is shaped outside, it has some similar shapes. Or boat hulls or wings, right? You have all these cross sections that are somewhat different in their overall dimensions, but similar in their shape, and then they're all seamlessly blended together. Excuse me. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go click on the loft, and again, the key here is you need two sketches, and they must be parallel to one another. And it's going to ask me to pick the first profile, and then it's going to ask me to pick the second. And it's going to seamlessly connect those two. Now, this is cool. This is good enough for a cup because I'm not filling it up, right? It's not hollow, but it's good enough to take the space of the cup for me to then make my coffee sleeve. If I wanted to, though, I could hollow this out. There's this really cool tool under Modify called Shell. And when I click on the surface, I can kind of drag and leave this space behind. So this 10 millimeters is how much space is left as like the walls. And that would also be like a floor, if you will, as well. So if I made this like 5 millimeters, I now have a cup. We'll leave it like that. All right, so I'm going to do the exact same thing to try to make the sleeve itself. And I'm really just using this as like a reference, right? Because I want to think to myself, how high up do I want this sleeve to go? I want to think maybe, where do I grab this? So I'm going to head and I'm going to put some planes in because they don't exist. And I'm going to take this little edge and be the first place. And I'm just going to eyeball this because I don't know where I want this sleeve to go. But I don't want it too near the top. That looks good. And then I'll offset another plane from this plane. And again, I'm just going to eyeball it from the front view. And I'm going to think about like where I might want this one to go. And I got to leave room for a handle too. That looks pretty good. And I hit OK. All right. In terms of distance, right, I still don't know what this size is right here. And I don't know what this size is right here. But I could either eyeball it or I could try to figure it out. A couple of cool features to try to figure it out. I could use these planes to split this cup into 3 separate bodies. If I hover my mouse over this split body tool, Well, when I click on it and I click on the body of the cup and I select these as splitting tools and I hit OK, over in my feature tree, I now have 3 bodies. And if I turn eyeballs off, I can actually eliminate those 3 and then realize, hey, this is the part I care about. Well, why do I want to do that? Well, I can use my inspect tool. I can click on the outside edge, and it's going to tell me what the diameter is. And I'm going to go ahead and write this down. The diameter is 82.182 millimeters. It's always good to draw, especially if you are trying to keep track of like a lot of numbers here. And if I come down here and I do the inspect again, and I click this edge, it tells me that that diameter is 63.09. Right? So as long as my coffee cup sleeve is bigger than those, it should fit pretty close to it, right? And if it's a little big, it might slide up. If it's a little small, it might slide down, but that should be really close. So I'm going to go ahead and turn those bodies back on. And if I wanted to, I actually could get rid of this because I don't want that split body tool. I just used it to figure that information out, and I can delete it. Remember how you delete things is you can draw this little cursor back on the timeline, right click on the icon, and then it'll give you the option to delete. I don't have to, but I'm going to go ahead and use these planes. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the exact same thing I did, but I'm going to be a little bit more thoughtful. I'm going to turn this body off right now just so it doesn't get in the way. I know it's 82.182. So I'm going to make mine 83. 83 millimeters. And then I need another circle because this thing has to have some thickness to it, right? A coffee cup sleeve isn't a circle. Circles don't have like 3-dimensionalness to them. So up here, I'm going to use this tool called offset. When I click on it and I click on my shape, it's just going to make another shape, and it's going to allow me to type in a distance of how thick I want the wall. It's kind of like the shell version or the opposite of it for a 2-dimensional sketch. This is where you might want to kind of play around with this and think about how big you want it. I just want it to be like easy to see, so I'm going to pick 5. Even though it might be pretty big for a coffee cup sleeve. And I'm going to hit Finish Sketch. I'm going to come down and I'm going to do the exact same thing, create a sketch on this bottom plane. And according to my dimension, 63.09, I'm going to make it 64. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to offset it the same size. So my walls are the same. I'm going to offset that 5 millimeters. Now, right now, with all of these circles, it looks like there's a ton going on, right? So remember, when in doubt, you can turn off some of these sketches. It's actually not as busy as it looks when you start to rotate this. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish sketch. Now's when things can kind of get interesting. It might let us do this. It might not. We might have to do it in 2 steps. I can't tell you why. I'm not going to lie. My goal is going to be to loft just the walls. Let's see if it lets me do it. If it doesn't, I have a cheat. I want that. Ooh, did it let me do it? It might not have. Okay. It did not. So this happens often. It drives me nuts. It will not let me do that. So I lofted the entire thing for some reason. Well, just like we can extrude and extrude cut, we can loft and we can loft cut. So if I come back in and I select just the inner circle, and I select just the inner circle, I can go ahead and cut that out. And now I would have just the coffee cup sleeve. And if I turn my other body back on, I would see that it fits nicely on the inside. So that right away could be good enough. But we're going to go ahead and add one more set of tools to this to reference the handle. Now, if you think about a handle, there's a cross section to it. Imagine if you broke like a coffee cup handle and looked at it from like the inside. That's a profile. And then there's a path that it takes. Let me see if I can demonstrate this on our images. Yes. If I was to, and you can see I'm using this little zoom in, if I was to cut this right here, I might see an oval shape. But then it takes this path that represents a curve. So what is the shape at any cross section, and then what is the path that it takes? Those are two different sketches. The big difference is instead of being parallel, they now have to be perpendicular. I'm going to start with the path. Again, I modeled around the origin. Very smart of me. Thanks for saying it. And I'm going to go ahead and pick that plane. And again, it looks like I'm drawn kind of like on the front of this, but I'm going to use my favorite spline tool to give this some flair. If I can find it. There we go. And I'm going to zoom, and I'm just going to make sure that I start like just inside. Remember, there's only a 5 millimeter difference between the outside and the inside, but I'm going to make sure I start like right there. And I'm going to start to come out, and I'm going to start to curve. And my goal is to kind of make this loop in. And again, I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to end just inside. I'm going to hit the check mark. So that looks, oh, that's terrible. That's what happens when you zoom too much. Holy smokes. I'm going to go ahead and pull that down. And I'm going to pull that out. And we haven't done this before, but this is some of the cool stuff that you can do with a sweep. Is you can modify where these points are. I apologize for that being terrible. That's more what I was looking for. And to be honest with you, since I know what I'm going to do, I think this is actually a little too high. So I'm going to bring that down a little bit. Okay, that's better. And I'm going to hit Finish Sketch. Now, I want to draw on this line. I want to be able to have my shape follow that line. I don't have any planes to draw on that are perpendicular to this line. In fact, it's going to be really hard to get a plane that's perpendicular. So under Construct, it's the next type of plane insertion that I use more than anything else, plane along a path. And when I click my spline, I'm going to be able to put a plane, and you kind of can see it if I rotate the view a little bit. You can see it here as this line. And I'm going to push it all the way up until the end of where that starts. And I hit OK. And I'm going to turn on my construction planes. And there it is. I'm going to turn off all these other planes so I can't see them. And that's where I'm going to draw. I'm going to create a sketch on this plane that I have placed along a path. And the only thing I need to keep track of is kind of where it ends. So again, I'm going to change my view a little bit just to make sure. And it is kind of where this new origin was placed. Do we see it? Right. It is right there. I can make this any shape I want. I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm going to make it a circle for now. It snaps my kind of like cursor there, and I'm going to make this a 4 millimeter circle. And I'm going to hit Finish Sketch. And now I have this circle that is perpendicular to this path. And this is where one of the most awesome things that Fusion can do. It's called a sweep. A sweep is an extrusion that doesn't take a straight line path. Basically, that's what it is. It gets its own name. It's called sweep. Instead of extruding a circle to be a cylinder, in this case, you extrude a circle along this like squiggly line. And that's exactly what we're going to do. When I go ahead and click sweep, it's going to ask me to first select the profile. That's that image. And then it's going to ask me to, then when I click on it, make it blue, I select the path. And it previews in red because it started inside my cup. So it thinks I want to cut it out. And I don't want to cut it out. I want to join. And I go ahead and I hit OK. And I now have my coffee cup sleeve that could easily go on top of a coffee cup. Now you might look at the sleeve and you might think to yourself, wow, that handle's like super thin. It's going to break. You're right. It might. So I could easily go back and I could adjust, go back in time. I'm going to edit that sketch. And I could easily change the shape to be something a little bit wider. Maybe you want to go ahead and mess with some of these other tools. Like here's one called a ellipse. A slot will do an ellipse. I can hit finish sketch. And then when I move forward in time, I can edit that feature and I can go ahead and select the profile. And now when I hit OK, now I have a little bit more of a robust handle. All right, that's the video for today. We went over inserting planes by using an offset plane to make parallel planes. We went over plane along a path, so we can put a plane along any line that we've created. It doesn't have to be curved, it can be straight as well. And then we went over two three-dimensional features, one called a loft, where we join two parallel shapes into one seamless three-dimensional object. And then a sweep, which is kind of like an extrude, but it can follow a curved path instead of a straight line. As usual. Awesome.